Trump never expected this ending. When he pushed the narrative that white South Africans were being hunted and persecuted, it wasn't just foreign policy. It was political theater aimed at his American base. By selling the image of persecuted white farmers, he tapped into a potent cocktail of racial grievance and nostalgia for a world where whiteness itself was currency. He promised these Afrikaners a safe haven in the United States, offering jobs, homes, security, and a new life. But while the media frenzy raged, something unexpected happened. Most South African white farmers rejected the offer outright. Only a few took the gamble, selling their land, uprooting their families, and boarding flights to a country they were told would embrace them. Now, those who arrived are living a nightmare, trapped in hotel rooms, jobless, broke, and abandoned. The same political machine that fast-tracked their entry has left them to fend for themselves, exposing what this really was. Not a rescue mission, but a propaganda stunt. So what really happened? How did a story built on white victimhood become one of empty promises, ruined lives, and political hypocrisy? In this video, let's break it down. The story begins not in the cramped motels of small-town America, but in the sprawling farmlands of South Africa. Landscapes carved up and controlled by a minority that had perfected the art of turning privilege into permanence. Afrikaners, who are descendants of Dutch, French, and German settlers, held immense wealth and political control in South Africa for much of modern history. That dominance was cemented through deliberate legal and political systems, especially during apartheid. One of the most defining moments came in 1913, with the Native Land Act. This law effectively barred Black South Africans from owning land in most parts of the country, forcing them into reserves and leaving fertile farmland in the hands of white settlers. Over the decades, this created a reality where white farming families amassed large estates, passed down from generation to generation, while the Black majority was left landless and dependent on low-paying labor. When apartheid formally ended in 1994, the vast inequality in land ownership remained. Afrikaners still held some of the most productive farms in the country, while many Black South Africans remained trapped in cycles of poverty. Successive governments promised land reform, but progress was slow, and ownership patterns hardly changed. This is the context. Afrikaners were never historically marginalized under the system. They were the primary beneficiaries of it. Yet in recent years, the narrative has shifted dramatically, especially under Donald Trump's second presidency. In the mid-2020s, far-right networks in the United States and Europe began circulating claims that white South African farmers were the targets of an organized campaign of killings and land seizures. The idea was pushed on social media, in blogs, and in speeches by prominent figures, including Elon Musk, who drew global attention by tweeting about farm murders in South Africa. The problem was that these claims did not match reality. South Africa's violent crime problem is severe, but it affects all races. Statistically, Black South Africans are far more likely to be victims of murder. There was no credible evidence of a state-backed plan to exterminate white farmers. Land reform legislation allowed for expropriation only under strict conditions, and even then, after failed negotiations, not through mass confiscations. Despite this, Trump embraced the narrative. In public remarks, interviews, and tweets, he portrayed Afrikaners as an endangered minority needing rescue. His administration launched a special asylum category for white South African farmers. This was happening at the same time that refugee admissions for people from countries like Syria, Sudan, and Afghanistan were being slashed. The contrast was glaring. Doors closed to Black and brown refugees from war zones, but opened wide for white farmers from a stable democracy. The first flights out of Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport were widely covered in the media. They had sold their farms, liquidated assets, and told neighbors they were leaving because it was no longer safe to live in South Africa. One such case was Charles Kleinhaus, who claimed that he had been threatened and that people had tried to seize his property in Limpopo province. Under the new asylum program, he was not required to provide documentary proof. However, South African government records later revealed that there had been no expropriation of his land, no government seizure, and no formal threats reported to police. These details highlight how the process relied heavily on personal testimony rather than verified evidence. The Expropriation Act in place at the time only allowed property seizure after negotiation failures, and there had been no wave of forced takeovers. Nevertheless, the United States processed applications quickly, treating these claims as if they were fleeing imminent harm.